Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Darwin's first top-end roundup. My name is Mike, and I'm an alcoholic, and I'm sober today purely because of the fellowship of AA and the 12 steps of recovery. This morning's meeting is going to be a steps meeting led by Jack Brennan. We trust you enjoyed this meeting and all the meetings of the top-end roundup for this weekend. We hope we all have a good
Morning, friends. My name is Jack Brennan. I'm an alcoholic. And it's a pleasure to be here this morning and do the best I can to share with you what little I know about the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we'll wait just a few minutes. Here come a bunch of people. Good morning. When I first came into AA, there was a very positive program for Alcoholics Anonymous, and I mean a positive program in that when you came to AA, people wouldn't just say, well, keep on coming, everything's going to be all right. They actually told you what to do and described to you how to live and how to change your life. And over the years, that seems to be changed around just a little bit. There are many people that come into AA and they take a look on the wall and they see the steps and they say, that's nice, isn't it? And that's about as far as they go. And what happens is that when the alcoholic comes into AA, takes the alcohol out of his life, and what he's left with is a great big huge bundle of trouble in his mind and in his heart, and he feels very dirty and he feels very guilty and he feels a lot of emotions. He feels very insecure, and he's come into a place where there's a lot of people that he doesn't know, and he's quite scared. And the first and foremost manifestation of our disease is ungrounded and unfounded fear. And realizing that and keeping that in mind, you can see that when the alcoholic comes to AA and all that he does is stop drinking, well, he can't live that way. He just can't live that way. It's impossible. And a lot of people these days don't even, understand that there is a program of AA, and the program of AA is the 12 steps. Down there in Perth, where I am now, it's just it's amazing. People come into AA, they get sober, and they stay sober for a while, and pretty soon their sobriety starts to pile up on them. And all the fears that they have and all the things that they've done as an alcoholic start to become very real in their lives, and it bothers them to the point where if they don't do something about it, then they have to pick up a drink, because that's the only relief for the alcoholic. Take a drink. If something bothers you, take a drink. And your past and your problems, your life will bother you if you're sober now and not doing anything about your problems. Well, anyway, I do believe very strongly in the progression of sobriety. We all talk about the progression of the disease of alcoholism, but we do have what I call a progression of sobriety. And as your mind gets clearer and you stay sober day by day, what happens is that your mind becomes very clear to the point where it becomes almost unbearable, and all these things start piling back into your head. And if you don't do something about it, you're in trouble. I've been told very bluntly by some people that I don't need the steps. A lot of people tell me they don't need the steps. And I look at them, and their brand of sobriety I don't want. They're just dry, period, that's it. And if you drop a cup on the other side of the room, they're likely to go out through the window, you see. They're nasty. They come to AA and they smile with their teeth. You know what I mean by smiling with your teeth. Have a fixed smile on their face, and when they leave, they say, thank God. They go home and probably bash the wife and kick the kids. They're just not happy. They're in AA and they're sober, but I call them booze fighters. That's all they are, booze fighters. They hang on as long as they can, and they get drunk, and the first thing they say is, well, AA doesn't work, you see, and that's the way that it goes. Well, anyway, if you have read AA Comes of Age, and you see a part in there by Bill Wilson, and it's a quote, and it says that The alcoholic that comes into Alcoholics Anonymous and doesn't, to the best of his ability, put the 12 steps into his life and change, is almost certain to drink again. And that's quite emphatic and quite clear. And a lot of people say, well, it's only a suggested program. Well, I like to tell you the story about the parachute, you see. Every time that you're in a plane and you have a parachute strapped to you, you know what you got to do. There's a ring there. You pull that ring when you jump. If you don't, you're in trouble. And it's called the ripcord. And when you pull that ring, out goes the chute, and you float down very nicely. Well, under that ring, there's always a sign printed on there. It says pull, P-U-L-L. And I suggest that that's only a suggestion, too. You don't have to, you know. You don't have to. You can do just exactly as you want. You can jump out of there and splatter on the ground, or you can, when all else fails, read the directions. And if you got time. Well, that's the way I like in this business of the steps. If you want what we have, it says there in that 5th chapter of the big book, then this is what that you do. You don't have to. And if you want to keep on, you know, the way you are, fine. And then we come to the 12th step there, where it says, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. As a result of what steps? The first 11, the previous 11 steps. And if you look at that closely, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, and then we try to carry this message to other alcoholics and practice these principles in all our affairs. Now, I have a son out there that's drinking. He may be drinking at the moment, maybe in AA, I don't know. But he's an alcoholic, and he's been an alcoholic for the past 25 years. And he runs in always to he runs into AA when going gets pretty tough. And then he takes off after a little while because he can't look at himself. He can't put the steps into his life. There's just too much garbage in his life, and he doesn't have the guts enough to stand and look at himself and change, you see. So he's been drinking alcoholically for about 25 years, over 20 years anyway. And it hurts me because he runs about and he comes into AA, and when he gets into AA, he finds a group of people that he wants to find. Those people that say, oh, well, you know, do it any which way you want as long as you stay sober. And as a result of that, this kid is he's going down the chute real quick. And I don't like to see it, and it's bad. So therefore, I'm a very emphatic person. I talk just exactly as I see it. I don't mince any words with anybody, and I hope that you like what I have to say. And if you do, that's good, and if you don't, well, leave it here, because there's no problem. Don't cost you anything. But what I tell you about the steps is what I know to be true. I know exactly how the things happen to me, and I've seen so many people come in and out of AA, and I've watched the mistakes they make. I can tell you just exactly where they're making mistakes. I can almost see to the minute where they go off the program and try to go in their own direction and do it by themselves. And it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So that's enough for me. Now, I would say, too, at this point, that when I came into AA, there was never one meeting a week. Never. When a group started to form, they went to a church or somewhere and tried to get a hall or a place to meet for 2 nights. 2 nights a week, not one. And one night would be an open meeting where wives were welcome, and visitors and priests and ministers and judges and police, whoever wanted to come, an open meeting. And that was called the showcase of AA, where we exhibited what an alcoholic was. Just one head per piece, you see, and not nasty people, nice people, not fallen down drunks, and people well-dressed and alcoholics, and that was good. And the second meeting was called the schoolroom of AA, where the alcoholic learned to put the steps into his life and how the people before him did it. And that's the way that AA was conducted, and that's many years ago. And why the deviation, I don't know. But in the States now, you'll find a lot of groups that just have one meeting a week, or they have 2 meetings, they have discussion meeting, And they come in and they sit down and they say, what will we discuss tonight? Well, let's talk about the overhead sewage system in China, or the price of apples in the state of Washington. And it's pretty ridiculous to my mind, because we are doing for ourselves here in AA what no doctor can do, and what no scientist can do, what no priest can do, what no minister can do. Nobody can do what we do. No mother, no father, no brother, no sister. Nobody can help us. No one. And all the brains and all the technology and all the space-age computers and that can't help an alcoholic. And the only one that can help an alcoholic is the alcoholic himself. And that being the case, then it would seem to me that every alcoholic would be very anxious to know what route to take. Or you wouldn't take a young fella, and 6 years old, and stick a bunch of heavy books under his arm and put him on a bus and send him to college. It'd be ridiculous, because he would be out of his class. And by the same token, you wouldn't take an alcoholic shaking and shivering and about to puke and full of fear and full of remorse and regret and guilt, and stick him in the middle of a group of people and say, oh, now sit down and have some coffee and you'll be all right. It just don't work that way. It's pretty stupid, anybody to expect to come to AA and drink a lot of coffee and learn how to live. The only thing that happens when you drink a lot of coffee is you get diarrhea. That's all that you get. You don't have any, you can't come into an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and sit and expect to get what the first 100 had. And I would say, too, at this point that Dr. Silkwhite was a great friend of AA and a great friend of Bill Wilson. And I knew him very well, as I knew Bill Wilson very well. I lived for many years within 3 miles of Bill Wilson for about 15 years. And I knew Dr. Silkwhite. In fact, one of the last people I saw before I left the States was Dr. Silkwhite. And what happened was, and so few people know, what happened that Dr. Silkwhite watched Bill Wilson grow. And he watched him and Dr. Bob put AA together. And he never ceased to be amazed at AA. And even to this day, he just don't understand. He knows that it's a God-given and God-inspired program, and he's quite aware of that. And anyway, in the early days there, when he had 1 and then 2 and then 50, then 60 and 80 and then 100, when he reached 100, Dr. Silkwhite just couldn't take no more. And he said, Bill, I just don't know what's going on. He said, here you are, 100 hopeless, helpless, chronic drunks. You should be dead and you're all alive. And not only are you alive, but you're growing and changing so much, and you're out there helping other people. He said, it's just unbelievable. And he said, I'm very fortunate to be able to be associated with this bunch. And then he said something that changed everything. He said, why don't you people sit down and record how that you did it, put it down on paper, because you're not going to live forever, and surely there's going to be a lot more alcoholics behind you, and you're going to need something. So sit down and write it down on a piece of paper. And those first 100 got together and they wrote the 12 steps. This is how we did it. This is what that we did. These are the steps we took. That's why they were all in the past tense. And this is how that we accomplished what we did. 100 sober miracles, and that's just what they were. So the 12 steps are basically, as far as I'm concerned, the AA program. There's no question in my mind about it. So the alcoholic comes into AA, and he's very sick. He's sick to the death. Up a little bit, please. Huh?
You tell me what you want.
That's better. That's good. Thank you. The alcoholic comes into AA and he's sick to the death. And what that he looks at is a bunch of people, and a bunch of people that are nicely dressed and all happy and all sober. And immediately what happens, or what should happen, that this individual becomes a little bit, is given a little bit of faith and a little bit of hope. That if these people can do it, then I can do it too. And he goes about and he kind of tests people here and he tests them there, and he He listens to a few people. They tell him a few things about their own drinking, and little by little he becomes to the conclusion that he is no different from what they are. And this is the great reason that people at AA should always recognize the new individual when he comes in the door, because he's looking for something. And if he don't get it at that meeting, well, then he may never ever get it, because he may go out and die. So this individual comes and he looks and he sees, and came to believe is what that they say, come to believe. And he gets to that meeting, and for the first time in his life, as I did, I felt like I was home for the first time. I never felt anywhere in this world that I ever belonged anywhere. I never belonged at home. I never belonged in my house with my mother. I never belonged anywhere. The only thing that I felt was that I was a round block in a square hole. And I felt uneasy and uncomfortable everywhere that I went. And when I drank, I felt good. So I drank, of course, to feel good, and that's the alcoholic. But when I came to AA, I found what I would been looking for in the bottom of a bottle all my life. Here was people now that understood me, and I was filthy dirty. I was not clean by any means. I was dirty. I had a lot of body lice, and I had hair down here. I was full of blood, and I was a mess. But these people didn't back off from me like normal people would. They stood there, and I guess I'm sure that they had to smell me, because I stunk like a goat on Goat Hill. But none of them ever said anything about it except, welcome, we're glad to see you. And that was good. So I came to believe immediately, and that was my first step. And I do believe I took the first step before I came to AA. And the first step says, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives were unmanageable. Well, I'm going to put this in, I admitted that I was powerless over alcohol and that my life had become unmanageable. I had known that for many years, that I was powerless over alcohol and that my life was unmanageable, but I wouldn't accept it. I wouldn't accept it. I thought that I was going to find a magic solution, the magic way to drink, and one day I was going to take 2 drinks and go home like my brother. And that's all that I wanted. And I wanted to do that because that would make me different from my father. My father being an alcoholic, and me watching him performing at home when I was that high, I hated his guts and I couldn't be like him. So I fought not to be like my father. And I was going to learn how to drink, and I was not going to be like him. He was a drunken bum, and I was a nice young fella, see. I had money, and he had nothing, and that's the way I thought. Well, anyway, when I came to AA, I had taken the first step. I did finally, at long last, hanging over a toilet bowl, bleeding like a stuck pig on a Bowery in New York, I admitted that the bottle was bigger than me. I couldn't beat it. And I threw the bottle over my shoulder, and I said, to hell with it, let me die. I just can't fight no more. And I didn't care if they called me alcoholic, schmalcoholic, or what they called me. I just didn't want to fight no more. I accepted the first step, you see. I was powerless over alcohol, and my life was certainly unmanageable. I couldn't even move from where I was hanging on a toilet bowl. I was that weak. Well, now, a lot of people say, well, sure, you had to stop drinking. I didn't have to stop drinking. There's cemeteries in New York and in the Bowery over there and in Potter's Field in New York. They buried them in Potter's Field with a backhoe. 25 at a time, twice a week. That's 50 a week. Went to one big mass grave and they covered up with a bulldozer, and that's it. Potter's Field, they call it, you see. And 95% of the people in Potter's Field are alcoholics there because of kind of booze, you see. So nobody ever has to stop drinking. You don't have to stop. You should maybe, but you don't. Now, I stopped because that I just didn't want to drink no more. Now, you don't have to be to the point that I was. In fact, I hope that nobody ever goes to that point. It's not necessary. It's almost it's stupid. But you see, I had one of those alcoholic minds, and I was determined I was going to do it my way, and I was going to fight this thing to a draw. So what happened was that I gave up, and I admitted I was powerless over alcohol. My life was unmanageable, and I accepted it. Now, I would say at this point that people coming into AA today come in with a home, they come in with cars, they have a bank account, they have a family, and they think that their life is not unmanageable. So the way I describe unmanageability is that If you can't take a drink and guarantee your behavior, your life is unmanageable. If you can't take a drink and guarantee your behavior, then you're having trouble with alcohol. Your life is unmanageable. And if you miss a train because you're sitting in a bar and the train leaves and you're still there, that's unmanageability. And if your wife has a tea on the table at 7 o'clock or 6 and you get there at 9, that's unmanageable. So it doesn't say in that step anywhere how unmanageable your life has to be or how powerless you are over alcohol. It doesn't say that at all. It just says that you're having a little trouble, your life is unmanageable, and you're powerless over the next drink. And if you can't take a drink and guarantee your behavior, then you're powerless over alcohol. And that's step number 1. I admitted that very rapidly. And then it said, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And let us define the word sanity. What is sanity? A lot of people object to that word because it thinks that may mean crazy, and it doesn't mean that at all. Sanity is simply acting and with some sane thought, some good sane thinking. Before you do anything, you put a little thinking to it and think, and you come out with sane thinking. And if you don't do that and you act on impulse, then you're acting in a state of insanity. That's all that it means. Sane thinking. Well, it's very evident that the alcoholic doesn't act with sane thinking. He acts on... I have seen many people, I've seen myself wake up in a jail and look at the bars and say, where the hell am I now? And if I wasn't in a jail, I could have been in a nut house in a straitjacket or somewhere. And I would think back, and someone might ask me, how come you did the stupid things that you did? How come you took on 4 cops? You go up and look for a cop and take on 4 of them and get your brains beat out. How come you do that? And I would think about it a little bit, and I say, well, I really don't know. But it looked like a good idea at the time, you see. Well, now, that's a state of insanity, you see. Nobody does that. Well, I did it, but I was insane at the time. That did not mean that I was crazy. In fact, when I got to nut houses and I got out of the straitjacket and I looked around and I saw actually crazy people there. People that were really sick in the head. And the first thing that would occur to me any of these times in these hospitals, I didn't belong there. I knew damn well I didn't belong there. They were crazy and I was not. So much for the word sanity. Does not mean that you're crazy. It means that you act under the influence of alcohol and you do stupid things that normally you wouldn't want to do or wouldn't do. And that's all that it means. And it says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves. Now, when I first came into AA, people would have said to me, God, I would have left. I would have took off. Because I had cursed God all my life. All my life. I was brought up Irish Catholic, you know. And in the early days, I was an altar boy, and I tried to live real good. And then when trouble started to bug me, and I started getting trouble with alcohol, I blamed my father first for my drinking. And then I blamed my mother for not getting rid of my father when he used to beat on her. And then I blamed my brothers and my sisters. And then I turned on to God, you see, and I blamed him. Look what you did to me. Because when I was a kid, I used to sit between my mother and father, keep them from hurting them, each other, you see. And I was only that big. And I remember the terror that used to be in my heart when my father used to start screaming and threatening my mother. And I remember grabbing him around the legs and begging with him, you know, don't beat on her no more. And you see, this I remember all of this. And then God let that go on. And I got a tremendous hatred for God. Because here was I, a kid that used to hate booze the way I did, and I was afflicted with this damn problem with booze. I couldn't drink like normal people. I started getting trouble, and I was becoming more like my father every day. And I didn't like it, and I blamed God for that. So I cursed God, and now here I am in AA, and my sponsor's telling me there's no religion in AA, and I'm glad to hear that, because I was so guilty it was pitiful. And I just went along, and when it came to that second step, I had to substitute the group of people in AA. Because if anyone would have mentioned God to me, I would have took off with another bunch of holy rollers and let me go. I couldn't stomach that. So this program was written, I think, for people, for alcoholics just like me. And it says over there, power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. It doesn't say anything about higher power. And a lot of people read higher power into that, and it isn't. It just says a power greater than ourselves. Well, the alcoholic that comes through the door of AA, he looks about and he's probably shabby and he's probably, a little uneasy and he's got a lot of problems, and he looks at a bunch of people and they're all happy and nicely dressed, drinking coffee, all smiling. And they got big cars at the door probably, and they got nice shoes on their feet. And he knows that they got something that he wants. And that's the power greater than him that can restore him to sanity. Because if he asks them any question, he'll get an answer. And they'll teach him how to think sanely. If he wants to do something, if they know, don't do it right now, wait a little while. See, take it easy. And after you get your feet on the ground, then we'll make a few decisions. So this then is the power greater than yourself that restores your sanity when you first arrive. Now comes the big one. A lot of people get turned off when they come to the third step. Thank you. The third step says we made a decision to turn our lives, our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Well, now one day I said to my sponsor, I said, Sam, my sponsor was a little Jewish fella. He was about that big, and he was just as nice as he could be, very gentle man. And I said to him, Sam, I just feel so good. I don't know what to do. And I said, you know something? I owe you my life. And he said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, you know something, Jack? And I said, no. He said, you're an ungrateful Irish bum. And I looked at him, coming from a little Jewish fella, that hurt me, especially when I thought this guy was the second coming of God. I thought the sun rose and set on him. And when he told me that, I said, why do you say that to me? He said, because that's what you are, an ungrateful Irish bum. And I was amazed. I said, well, you better straighten that out, because I don't understand what you're saying. I said, you saved my life. He said, I didn't do a damn thing for you, nothing. All I did was go out and pick you up and carry you to AA and set you down here and watch out you didn't hurt yourself falling off a stool the first night you were here. And I just looked at him. I was amazed, because here was a whole new attitude of this guy. So I said, would you please explain to me what you're talking about? He said, yeah, I'll tell you. When the man upstairs, and he called him the higher power, the man upstairs, and he said, when the man upstairs heard you on the Bowery throwing in the sponge, he said he got a hold of me and told me to go out and get you through AA. And he said, I took Jean, my wife, and we went down to Bowery and we picked you up and we carried you to AA. And he said, Jack, that's all I've done for you, no more. That's it. And everything that's happened to you since is because of the man upstairs. And he said, you see, what I did for you was done for me. And the guy that did it for me had it done for him. And the guy that did it for him had it done for him. And if you carry it all the way back to the very beginning, who did it for Bill Wilson in that room some 40-odd years ago? The guy upstairs, the higher power. He said Bill had a spiritual experience. The higher power visited him and gave him this, understanding of other alcoholics. And he said he's the only one. And from that, we are all sober. So he said, we all owe the guy upstairs. We don't owe nobody else in AA anything, because we each are only giving away what was given to us very freely. So I had to think about that. And I said, well, Sam, how do I, He said, Jack, do you have any money in your pocket? I said, yeah, I got a few bucks. He said, you didn't have when you came here. He said, you have shoes? I said, yeah. He said, you didn't have when you got here. He said, do you have a job? I said, yeah. He said, you got a room, haven't you? Yeah. And he said, you eating pretty good? Yeah. He said, you couldn't eat when you got here, you'd puke. And I said, true. And he said, well, then everything that you have, you owe to the man upstairs, because he loves you pretty good. And I said, how do you figure that he loves me pretty good, Sam? He said, because there's millions more out there that were not brought to AA. You were. So he must love you pretty good. He's got something in store for you. He's going to have some work for you to do. So I listened to that man, and I felt mixed emotions. I didn't know what to believe. I had avoided the higher power and God for months because I wasn't prepared to be able to understand. But he put it to me so simply that there was no which way that I could get away from it. It was just that easy and that simple. I said, Sam, what do I do now that you shook me up like this? Tell me what to do. He said, I'll tell you what to do. You thank him for what that you have, and you turn your life and will over to him. And he's doing a pretty good job with you so far, isn't he? You got everything you need? I said, yeah. He said, well, let him continue. It's just that easy. I said, well, how do I do that? He said, well, talk to him, just like you talk to me. And then he said, no, wait just a minute. He said, in your case, you better clean it up a little bit first, he said, because, you're not. So that night I went out, and I didn't take the usual bus home. I walked, because I was up to here with emotion. And I just talked to my friend upstairs. And I told him, I said, I came here with nothing, and now I have everything. And that little Jewish fellow in there says that you love me, and it must be true. Because I'm sober. I was never sober before. I never had any friends before. And I've got everything now that I want. And I said, I got to believe what that little guy in there is saying. So I want to thank you for what that you did for me. And from here on in, you tell me what to do, and I'll do it to the best of my ability. And you know something? He's been telling me what to do since that day. Now, there are a lot of times in my life that I look at him, I look at the situation around me, and I say, man, I can do a lot better than this, And I tell him, I say, this is stupid, And sometimes it becomes very obvious that I got to do something that I think is wrong. But I look back at my track record. I look back at my record, and everything I ever touched turned to garbage. So now I must have a little faith. And when something comes up and I can't see the reason for it, I just put it off for a little while, and I say, well, I don't understand it, but I'm going to do it anyway, because this is what I'm supposed to do. And I do it. And sometimes the confusion is tremendous in my life. And I have to take my own advice. I tell alcoholics all the time, when your confusion reigns, don't get upset. And don't act like normal people. See, normal people say, don't just stand there, do something. And for the alcoholic, that's wrong. The alcoholic must tell himself, don't just do something, stand there. And if you do, you'll find out that the confusion will leave, and the answer will come to you. So just don't do something, stand there. And when everything is upside down in my life, I just put it on the side. I say, just stand here and see what happens. And it always comes out right, because I keep my big hands out of it, and I keep my life and my will in the care of the guy upstairs where it should be. See. Now, when I took the third step, Sam said to me, Jack, you like what you're doing? I said, I love it. And I said, Sam, it's just great. And he said, it's only the beginning. Things are going to get better. And he said, if you really like what you're doing, you want the rest of this program, you want the whole ball of wax, or you want to be like a lot of other people, just come in and get sober and forget about it. I said, no, I want the whole ball of wax. I want what you got. Now, what did Sam have? Sam had peace of heart, you see. A lot of people talk about serenity. I don't know what the hell serenity is. But he had peace of heart, and that's what I wanted. And he smoked a big cigar like that, big long cigar. He'd light one up the beginning of the meeting, and he'd just sit there, and he'd dribble down here and on his shirt, and his wife used to say, oh my God, look at that boy. And I said, he's beautiful. He's beautiful. Look at him. Nothing bothered him. He was a beautiful man, and I wanted what he had. Because I was one of them people, I was going here and there and there, 90 miles an hour, and he used to say, Jack, why don't you slow down? Guy upstairs is taking care of things. Don't worry about it. And I finally had to adopt. But I wanted what he had. And he told me one day, he said, if you want what I got, you knock me down and take it away from me, but you get it. You get it. And if I don't have it, you go to somebody that's got it and get it. That's what AA is all about. So he said, if you want the rest of this program, then you do what we did. And I said, what do I do next? He said, get a piece of paper and get a pencil, because you're going to go to work. And he said, you're going on a trip, and you got to know who you are, because, you know, there's a lot of misconceptions up here in your head, and you got to get yourself straightened out, and you got to know you. You don't know what's right, and you don't know what's wrong. You don't know anything about anything. You're dinny the dunce, you're stupid. And he said, you got to learn who you are. So I knew then he was talking about the fourth step. And the fourth step says, made a searching and feeleth moral inventory of yourself, of me. And I was prepared to do that because I wanted what he had. So I sat down with a piece of paper and I did exactly that, what I was told to do. I started with me, and I put down there on a piece of paper that I was a thief. And I didn't list, you know, every place that I had ever stuck up or stolen money from, or I just put down there I was a thief. I'm a thief. And basically that was my big problem. I never learned to work. I never wanted to work. I was a thief. And I hurt a lot of people. I put that down. I hurt a lot of people. I had a lot of envy in me and a lot of jealousy in me. And I had a lot of resentments. I resented my father real good. My mother had died, and I never had any chance to tell her, you know, that make any amends to her. She died while I was drunk, and all she knew of me was headlines in the newspaper, and I hurt her real bad. And, you know, I had to put that down on a piece of paper, too. And I hurt my brothers and my sisters, and I hurt a lot of people that I never knew. I remember I bashed a guy with a steel bar stool one day because he knocked me over when I, you know, accidentally brushed up against me, knocked me off a stool. And I come up with the stool, and I like to tear the head off him with a steel bar stool. And he lay there on the ground with his brain spilling out, you know, and the bartender told me to run, and I said, hell no, I ain't gonna run. That bum had it coming to him. He knocked me over first, see. And I said, if he opens his mouth again, I'll kick the rest of his brains out. That's the kind of individual that I was. And that went down on a piece of paper. I was vicious. I was nasty. Don't get in my way. People used to say to me, Jack, what way are you going? I said, I'm going that way. They said, well, we'll go this way. Nobody wanted to be associated with me, you see. And now I had to recognize these things in myself because I had to find out who that I was and what was right and what was wrong and what way to go. Because like Sam said, I was going on a very important trip. I was going to go on a one-way trip through life, and I had to know me. So I put it all down. I didn't make a great big huge book out of it. I didn't elaborate on it too much. I just put it down there as simply and as easily as that I could. And he told me in the beginning, he said, Jack, nobody's going to correct you on it. Nobody's going to read it. They're not going to worry about the spelling or the punctuation. It don't matter. He said, that is yours between you and a higher power. So you can be as honest as you possibly can be. Be honest and be fearless. And I could be fearless because I had turned my life over to the care of God as I understood him in the third step. And I had no more fear. I walked then without fear. And I didn't care. I hear a lot of people say, well, suppose I write this down and somebody finds it. So what? So they find it, you know. That's a very little faith that a lot of people have. Very little. You take that and you do it and you get it done. Stick it in a Bible somewhere because nobody ever reads the Bible, right? And you don't worry about it. And that's just it. Because you're going to need that paper later on. So I did my fourth step. And when I got through, I asked myself one question. Is there anything else in your mind that's bugging you? Is there anything else in your heart that you don't want nobody to know about? Is there anything else inside you and that you would prefer never to talk about? You know, you wish that it went away or you wish it never happened. And it wasn't. There was nothing left in me. So I considered myself to have done the fourth step. And I closed it up, and the relief that I felt was unimaginable. And what happened to me was that at that moment, I lost the desire to drink. I no more had to drink. Because from that, doing what that I did on that piece of paper, it took away from me all the fears. It took away from me everything. I no more had to drink because everything on that piece of paper was associated with alcohol. And I realized that alcohol had ruined my life. And when you come to that conclusion, then your wife is no more in the picture, the friends are no more in the picture, it's just you and booze, and look what it did to you. And a desire for a drink leaves. I haven't had a desire for a drink from that moment, because I looked at me on a sheet of paper and I said, that's what booze did to me, and to hell with booze. I don't want no more. I don't care if I live or die. I'm not going to drink no more, period, one day at a time. And then I had a hot potato, because now I knew me. And I didn't like me. I didn't like me one little bit. And I wanted to get rid of me. And my friend Sam said, Jack, the only way that you're going to get rid of you is by taking the fifth step. And I said, when can we do it? He said, do you want me? I said, yeah, definitely you. Because Sam, you know me, and I want you to know me a little better. And, you know, I want you to be, because I'm going to be with you. And when you see me going that way and I'm supposed to be going out, you tell me about it. Because I want what you got. And I didn't go around looking for no Spanish-speaking priest up in Harlem that didn't understand what I was talking about. I didn't go looking for anybody, you know, somebody that was going to leave and go to South America next week. I wanted somebody to know me that was going to be with me. Now, it says here in the big book that you can use a priest or minister or use who you want. And I don't never argue with the big book. Never. But I have found this, that I have had many people in my life come to me and tell me, Jack, I'm going to take my fifth step with a priest or minister. And I say, do what you want, but I advise you not to. I advise you not to very strongly. Take it with somebody in your group or somebody close to you. And the reason for that being because many, many times these guys have come back and told me that the priest or the minister actually told them that they didn't think that they were alcoholics. They couldn't be. They were too nice of people. And why don't you just try drinking a little beer and don't, you know, go for the heavy stuff. You'll be all right. And this has happened many, many times. So I advise people, you do as you want, of course, but I advise people to get somebody to take your fifth step with, and somebody is going to know you, and somebody's going to be with you, and somebody's going to stay near you and guide you and catch you when you're going off base. And that's the way that I took my fifth step. I sat down with Sam, and I just let it all pour out. And I didn't show him my fourth step. I didn't have anything like that. I just said, Sam, this is what's bothering me. These are the things that I want to tell you about me. And I told him about me. And the fifth step says that admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. Now, I didn't bore him with all the sort of details of this particular day in 1937 or 38 or whenever. I stuck up the Chase Manhattan Bank in lower New York. Nothing like that. The exact nature of my wrongs. I'm a vicious person. I'm a thief. I'm a very jealous person. I'm a guy, and I would tell him a few instances of it. I've always hated my brother because he was such a good fella. And now my brother died, you know, a few years ago, and I was very happy to be able to be real close to this guy because I had hurt him bad all his life. I badmouthed him all the time. Anytime anybody said anything nice about my brother, I would talk to him. I would tell them about things I knew about him that weren't so nice. I even made them up. So I badmouthed my brother, and, you know, these things, this is the way I spoke to my friend Sam. And, you know, he kept a cigar there, and he didn't even lose the ashes off the cigar. You know, I thought that he'd be shocked no end. He wasn't shocked. Because it's like John Barrymore said one day, you know. He was up on the stage in Massachusetts, and he was a great goer, too. He drank a lot of beer. And he had a play going up there in Massachusetts, and he happened to be near the footlights, and he had a belly full of beer. And a very quiet time in the performance, and he had a tremendous burp, you know. And a woman in the front row said, oh, my God, you know, like that. And he stopped the whole show. And he said, just 1 minute. And he bent over the footlights and he said to her, Madam, I've been drinking a whole lot of beer. What did you expect? Chimes? You see? And that's what I say about the alcoholic. You're an alcoholic. What do you expect? Beautiful things in your life? No. Garbage. Garbage. I don't know any alcoholic that comes into AA that got here because they were beautiful people or lovely people or so thoughtful of other people. Hell no. They got here because they're sick to the death of being sick to the death, And that's the way, and they've done a lot of nasty things. They've hurt people that shouldn't be hurt. And at this point, I would like to say, why did the higher power give to Bill Wilson the understanding that is needed for the alcoholic? Why didn't he give it to, doctors or lawyers or priests or scientists? Well, there's a friend of mine that wrote a little thing, and it says over there his name was Joe O'Connor, and he was a Jesuit priest, and he wrote that little piece in there. I don't see it here in AA and up here, and I'm sorry about that. I hope you'll get it. It says AA and the higher power. And it says, God in his infinite wisdom gave to this group of people a power beyond estimate. And it goes on to tell you why you're an alcoholic and why you're in AA. It's a very beautiful thing, you see. And Joe O'Connor wrote it, and he was always very unhappy. And I used to say to him, what's wrong, Joe? And he'd say, I'm only a priest. I can't be an alcoholic because when I drink, I get sick. And he said, I can't drink that much. And I said, Joe, that's tough, I said, I really feel sorry for you, Why don't you try drinking, little water with it or something? But if you want to be an alcoholic that bad, try harder. He said, I can't. I get too damn sick. I can't drink. And I say, that's tough. Really, I feel sorry for you. You can't be an alcoholic. You're only a priest. And I said, how come that you feel this way? He said, well, I watch you. You help that guy, then you help that guy, and you help that one, a young one, an old one. And he said, me, I help one, I'm doing real good. His life was a beautiful life. He had a beautiful life as a good priest, a lovely fella, but he was restricted in the way that he could help people. And he was very envious and very envious of AA. And he died very unhappy. But he did leave that little piece, AA and the higher power. And I would love to see more people read it, because they come into AA and they say, well, yeah, I'm sober, so what? So what? And that's a pretty poor attitude, because the gift that we have is what he said in that piece of literature that he wrote, a power beyond estimate, to be able to step into chaos in a family and bring something to that family that nobody else in this world can bring. Peace of heart, contentment, sobriety. And we are capable of doing that. And a lot of people don't realize what they're equipped to do. And they worry about, there was one particular fellow I know, his name was Bill Buckner, and he was like a Greek god, believe me. He was about 6'4". He had shoulders on him like that. He had a waist on him like that. Not a fat pot belly like me. He was built. And he had a lot of money, and he drove a big open Cadillac. And I used to look at this guy in awe. And I'd say, my God, if this guy can be an alcoholic, I'm glad I'm an alcoholic too. Because he looked like anything but an alcoholic. He looked like a Greek god, and I'm not kidding. He was a beautiful fella. He was a jiu-jitsu expert. He was some kind of a commander in the army somewhere. And his whole being, when he walked into a room, he filled up a door and everybody just stopped. And this guy sat at a meeting one night and he told his story, see. And he said that when he first came into AA at about 3 months, he was sitting in a bar one night and his friends had built bridges, and this guy was a great architect, and that guy was doing something else, and they were all big shots in their field. And what was he? And he's sitting in a bar looking in the blue glass in the mirror, and drinking a Coke, and he didn't belong in there in the first place. And he's feeling sorry for himself. He's on a pity pot, don't you see? And he's saying, yeah, they're all sober, and they did this and that and the other thing. I can't drink, and all I am is I'm a damn alcoholic. That's all I am. And he said to himself, yeah, well, you're sober, so what? And it was that kind of thinking. You see, I almost dumped him. And suddenly he went and called somebody, and somebody came to him and explained to him, hey, you're sober. And they explained to him this, that no matter what anybody else in this world did, as far as great things were concerned, that no one could do what he had done. He had saved his own life, and if he could take care of his body and save his own soul for the rest of the time that he was alive, nobody could be greater than that. So he developed a new outlook on life, and from that day on, he helped a tremendous amount of people in AA because he realized what this program was all about and that it was a gift. It wasn't some place to come to stay sober. And when you felt like having a drink, go have a drink, you always come back to AA. See, no, that's not the way that it works. See, this is truly a gift from the higher power to we people. And why did they give it to Bill Wilson? Why did he give it to Bill Wilson? I don't know. But I think I have an idea. Because we, as alcoholics, we hate all the wrong people. We hate mothers, we hate fathers, we hate wives, and particularly we hate little people, our children. And I think that the man upstairs had to find some way to stop we people from hating people that didn't deserve to be hate. And so he said, well, I don't know how to do it. I could make them all stop drinking now, but I gave them free will. So I can't do that. I can't inflict anything on them. They have free will. They can drink or not drink, but I wish they wouldn't. So he then schemed out this way of giving us something that he never gave to anybody else. He gave us the gift of sobriety and the gift of understanding, and that's what AA is. Understanding, one alcoholic for the other. See? And they can't bottle it, and they can't put it in a book, and there's no damn doctor in the world that understands us and never will. There ain't a damn one of them knows what the hell he's talking about when it comes to booze. Nobody. Because we are the experts. We know and they don't. And they can guess about it and they can talk about it and they can give you pills and they can do. And they're all just scratching the surface. They don't know. They have not been given a gift. No wife has been given a gift. No father, no mother, no priest, no doctor, nobody. Only the alcoholic, because unto your weak and trembling hands I give the gift of healing other alcoholics, which I gave to no man. Joe O'Connor. Read it. It's beautiful. It changed my life. I'm sure it'll change yours too. And if you ever get to that point where you say, yeah, I'm sober, so what? Better quick get a hold of a telephone and call somebody up in AA and have them explain to you why that you're sober. Because I'll tell you very frankly, if I came through the doors of AA and all I got was sobriety, I'd cut my throat today. Or I'd go out and get drunk and it'd be the last drunk I ever had. If there was no more in here than just sobriety, I don't want it. I don't want it. Because when I came through those doors, I couldn't stand the stink of me. Couldn't possibly live with me for any length of time. Because the more sober I got, the more I stunk inside. Even though I cleaned up the outside, I still stunk inside. So if I was just in AA and sober, I'd rather be dead. So I want to tell you something. There's a hell of a lot more than here than just not drinking. Because over here is the way that we people find our way to eventual living with the higher power after we die. See? Many normal people, they get up in the morning and they live a good life and they go to bed and they get up on church and they go to church on Sunday. And theirs is a direct route from here, from birth to there to death. Straight, even road, they have no trouble. They just go along that road and they wind up from here to there and they're happy. And they die good and they live nice lives. But we're alcoholics and we suffer from a very real physical disease. Very real. And it causes our mind to be diverted. And it causes us to do things that we never want to do. And then the guilt drives us mad and we go for more and more and more. It's a rat race. The rat race of alcoholism. The more that we do, the more that we need. The more that we take, the more that we do. And then we wind up. So our path to the end over there is very devious. It goes that way and that way. Sometimes it comes back and goes across and up there. But eventually you get to the same place the normal people do. Because we try. And that is the name of the game. Trying. You could call Alcoholics Anonymous attitude. It's your attitude that's important, see? So if you come into AA and look for the whole ball of wax, that's what you're going to get. Now we were ready for step 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. A lot of people say, yeah, I'm ready, go ahead. And they wait for a little magic wand to hit them on the head, and it don't happen. They're the same people. They just sit there and they wait. So how that the man upstairs removes these defects of character is that he brings them to your attention. Now you've got your conscience in the back desensitized with alcohol. Now it becomes sensitized again, comes back to life. And as you go through life, you know that you're doing the wrong thing. And pretty soon, you know, you get confused. And then you have to ask God, entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character, see. Now, you take your fourth step. You look at your fourth step and you see your defects of character. And you look at them and you say, do I want them? No, I don't want them. Very few people want them. I only met one person in AA said he had some that he wanted to keep. I said, good, keep them. And if he ever gets sober again, I'm going to ask him, how was it, you know, when you kept him? If he's lucky enough to get sober again. But he got stinking drunk about a month later. And he's still going as far as I'm concerned. So I wanted rid of mine. I said, oh yeah, I don't want no part of them. So how that he removes them is by making us aware of them. You know, you'll start one day to say something nasty to your wife again or to your husband. And you'll stop and you say, no, wait, that's a character defect. See, that's something that I do that I shouldn't be doing. So you pull yourself up short. And the guy upstairs will always put them right in front of your face like that. Now, if you like gambling, bam, here comes all the gambling that you want. People will be inviting you to go to the racetrack or here, where they want to sit in a card game. It comes there and you push it away and you say, no, I don't want none of that. And it goes away. And it comes back again, just like a carrot on a string. See? Push it away, here it comes back. Push it away, here it comes back. So finally you get the idea and you say, oh, out of my life, that's it, finished, and it's gone. And what happens then? Here comes another one, see? Another carrot on a string. You like dancing girls? Man, you're going to see dancing girls all over the damn place out there. They're going to be ringing you up on the phone and falling down in front of you. They'll be all over the place. And you say, where the hell they all come from? Where were they when I was drinking? You know, but here they are now. Because the guy upstairs is going to put them in front of you until you say, that's it, I don't want no more. And when you do, that goes. Then here comes another one. You a thief? You're going to find money in the street. People are going to leave money on the counter. You're going to have money all over the place. And if you pick it up, well, you're not in AA. And until you learn, and the rest of your life, you're going to be fighting character defects. Because they're always there in the background. And if you relax your vigilance just a little bit, then boom, they're going to be right in front of you again, and you're going to have to make another decision. No, back there, I don't want no more of that. See? And that's the way life goes on. See? And that's step number 6. And character defects are things that you're doing that you shouldn't be. And then we come to step number 7. We humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. Now, what are our shortcomings? A lot of people say, character defect is this, a shortcoming is that. A shortcoming is those things that we are supposed to be doing and aren't. Now, it's not simple. A character defect is things that we do that we're not supposed to be, and a shortcoming are those things that we are supposed to be doing and aren't. What are we supposed to be doing that we aren't? Well, I have heard many people in AA come into AA say, I just can't get along with my kids. They bother me, they annoy me, and I just want to love them, and I can't. They're just a nuisance. And that's a shortcoming. You're supposed to be able to take your kids and put them on your lap and give them a bath once in a while, take them out to a ball game, whatever you play up here, I don't know. You take them to the circus. You're supposed to be able to live with your children, and if you can't, why? Because that's a shortcoming that you have. And you're supposed to be able once in a while to tell your wife, hey, you sit down and I'll clear the table. See? Or you're supposed to go and do things that normally you don't know that even you're supposed to do. You have to learn how to live. And these are where your shortcomings come into play. So you humbly ask him to remove your shortcomings, and he makes you aware of them too, just like character defects. And then we go on to step number 7. Or number 8. We make a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. The big thing in that step is to not look at step 9 when you're doing step 8. Because if you look at step 9, you will never do step 8. What happens is that you say, well, I can't do it, so I won't make the list. That's wrong. You make the list. Whether or not that you can do it is unimportant. The thing is, again, we go back to attitude. What is your attitude? Are you willing to do as you're asked to do? So you sit down and you make a list and you put everybody on there that you have injured. Now, it don't mean people that you have been embarrassed with or, because making amends is repairing damage. So I have never, ever gone up to a doorbell and ring a doorbell and a guy come out and say, I'm sorry, I did this to you. That, to me, is not making an amend. Making an amends, repairing damage. Now, I damaged my wife's life. I damaged my children's lives. And no amount of apologies is going to repair that damage. It takes something from me, actual work from me, to repair the damage. And many people come into AA and they say, well, I hurt my kids, so I'll buy them a bicycle for Christmas. That is not repairing damage. That is not helping children. Children need a lot of close attention and supervision, and the alcoholic is the one that doesn't give it to them. And then he comes into AA and he goes blithely along the same path, and the kids get kind of upset again, and he tries to buy his children in a lot of cases. You don't buy children, that's not making amends. They need to be disciplined when they need it. They need to have a regulated life, and they're supposed to get it. They're supposed to be supplied with all their needs and shoes, and if you don't have money for shoes for you, and the kids need shoes, then the kids get the shoes. That's the way that it works. You see, you come last. Because when you came in, I hear people in AA, I'm amazed. They say, I put me on the top of that amends list because I hurt me more than anybody. And I say, you better go out and come in again because there's something wrong with your head. You came into AA and you got the greatest gift that God could give any human being. You don't need anything else. Your life is in the hands of the guy upstairs and you got everything that you need. You don't need anything. Who the hell are you to get amends made to you? You don't make no amends to yourself. You take care of other people and the guy upstairs will take care of you. So you make the list whether or not you can take care of people on it or not. You just put them down there because a tremendous thing happens when you make a list. It gets it out of here and on a piece of paper. And you'd be surprised. You go to bed at night and you sleep. You say, well, I can't do anything about it at the moment. But at least I've done something. I've put it on. I've got a list. And you ask yourself the question, if you would make if you could, would you? And if the answer comes back yes, then you've done the 8th step if you've made your list. That's all there is to it. Then we come to the 9th step. Make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. See? Now, what I have to say here is that I owe a whole bunch of money. I owe a whole bunch of money. I've stolen more money probably than most people see in a lifetime. And I can't go back to banks or loan agencies or nightclubs. I just can't go back and say, hey, I'm the guy that knocked you off, I'd go to jail. There's no reason for that. It won't help anybody. Won't help me, certainly. What it would have done would be injure my wife because she needed every dime she could get when I got sober. And when it came back to paying back little loans, I went out and I got a second job because I didn't feel it was right. I deprived my wife long enough by drinking. And so I went out and I got a second job to take care of my bills. That I had my own bills that I had drinking and borrowing money and what. And I got a second job in order to pay them. And I didn't think everything that I earned on my first job I gave to my wife to raise the children. And I went 14 years without buying a suit. And it got to the point where my wife would say to me, hey, Jack, you go to meetings and you speak and you got that old bag on you there. And I said, what's wrong with this suit? See, my first suit came from a morgue. Yeah. One of the group called me up one day and he said, hey, Jack, why don't you come on over and see me? This is Bill. And I said, where are you, Bill? He said, over in Kings County Morgue. I said, what the hell are you doing over there? He said, I work over here. I said, oh, I didn't know that. I said, what do you want me over there for? He said, well, we got a guy in this morning and he's just your size. and he's got a nice suit, a blue suit. Why don't you come on over and see if it fits you? And I went over there, and I said, my God, Bill, do you think we ought to be taking a guy's suit? He said, well, geez, he ain't going to need it no more. He don't need it. And he said, go ahead, have it. I only had a little hole in the back here, in the pocket where he got hit with a truck. That was it. It was full of blood in it, but it washed up nice, it cleaned up nice, and I had a suit. As long as I kept my jacket on, it was all right, see? And that's the way I went. And that suit lasted me a hell of a while. And then one time my wife said to me, you got to get a new suit. You look like a, you know. So I went out and very reluctantly I bought a new suit. Very reluctantly. Because I felt that with all the money that I stole and all the things that I had done, and I'm taking welfare checks right out of the kids' mouths and taking milk right out of their mouth, I didn't feel like I deserved anything. Nothing. And that's the way I still feel. I don't have anything that I need. I have everything that I need. I don't have everything I want, but I got everything I need. And that's the way it's been with me, and that's the attitude that I have. So I took that step, and I made direct amends wherever I could. I went to my brother one time. My brother came to me, and it was a long time. He used to say to me, hey, Jack, you still running around with that bunch of nuts in AA? I said, yeah, Jimmy, yeah, I still run around with them. And he said, boy, why don't you spend a little more time home with your wife and your family, you know? And I said, well, my wife and my family are in good shape. They're all right. They're happy. And he said, yeah, but, you know, you've been away a long time. You're out of the house. You're in jails, in prisons. And why don't you stay home and really enjoy yourself? See? He don't understand. He didn't understand. One day he came to me and he said, hey, Jack, I'm on strike. He was an artist. He drew, he painted some beautiful stuff. But for a living, he worked for a newspaper, and he did retouch work for a newspaper. And he said, we're on strike, and been a couple of 3 weeks now, and I don't have, you know, too much behind me. He said, you hire a lot of people on your job. I hired a lot of people, clean-up people, you know. I was working for real estate companies, and I had contracts for cleaning and maintenance and whatnot. And he said, how about you put me to work? He said, you hire a lot of people? He said, I could push a broom for you or something. And I said, all right, good. I said, but I'll tell you what you do. You go and you bring up your easels and whatnot, and your paints, excuse me. I got a few cartoons that I'd like you to do for me. So instead of you pushing a broom, you do the cartoons. And he said, really? I said, yeah, do that. So he come up there, and he sat in my office, and I put him in a corner with a desk and his easel, and I told him what I wanted, and he made me up about 25 beautiful cartoons about this big. And they're all framed, and they're on the wall down in Sobriety Unlimited in Mount Vernon, New York yet. And they're beautiful. For instance, one is where a bunch of people stand, a guy laying in a casket, and one guy is saying to the other, he sure looks good since he stopped drinking, you see. That was one cartoon, and then they're all in that order, you know, alcoholic jokes, and it was good. So while I'm there, he said to me one day after a couple of weeks, he was leaving, strike was over, he was going back to work. He said, Jack, I want to say something to you. I said, what's that? He said, you know, I never knew what you did. He said, but while I've been here, I've been watching your phone ring. I see this kid Mickey come in and out, you know. I saw him when he got here with no pants, and you give him a pair of pants, and now he's working, he's happy. He said, I never knew what you did. He said, you do this all the time, do you? I said, yeah. He said, damn, I'm proud to know you, you know, just like that. And I said, is that right? Yeah. I said, well, that's good, a different attitude. I said, you know, you still running around with that bunch of nuts, Jack? He said, no more of that. He said, now I understand you. And he sent me a very lovely letter after that. And he said, for the first time in my life, I understand my brother. And it was just shortly before he died, see? And he never knew that he was not on the payroll. I never put him on the payroll. I wasn't that. I paid him out of my pocket, half a week. That was it, boom. And I paid him out of my pocket. And that's the way that I made amends to my brother. See, for all the nasty, rotten things I had done to him, all the bad mouthing I had done to him. And I never said, well, you know, Jimmy, here, I'm going to pay this and that. No. Let him work. Let him think he's earning a buck, and he did earn it. I got my cartoons, and he got his money, and he paid his rent at home. And when he died, him and I were very, very close friends. And He loved me real good, and I loved him real good. And you see, he was only 52 when he died, and he died of high blood pressure. And I often think of him, and I think of him, he left 2 lovely children, a lovely wife, you know, and here I am, getting my brains kicked out, and cops shooting at me all over the place, and running mad, and being beat half to death, and sleeping in the streets, and I'm alive. And he's dead. And if I were to stand and ask the guy upstairs why, well, then I wouldn't be right. See, because mine is not the question. I'm alive, and I'm alive for a reason. I'm alive to be here this morning, talk to you people. That's what I'm here for, see? And that's the way that it is. And he's dead because the guy upstairs wanted him. And my mother was dead, and there was nothing I could do. And Sam Cohn told me, I said, how do I make amends to my mother, Sam? She's dead, she never saw me sober, and I feel pretty bad about it. He said, hey, there's a whole bunch of other mothers laying around here, you know. And he said, he's got a mother, he's got a mother, you help him, you help his mother, right? Do I have to be your mother? I said, well, not really, I'd like it to be. He said, well, put your likes where forget your likes. Your mother knows what you're doing. You don't have to tell her, you don't have to write a letter to the Holy Ghost. And I said, well, okay, that's your attitude. And this was a little Jewish fella, too. He's a pretty smart cookie, this boy, I tell you. And he died, too, just before Bill Wilson died, 2 weeks. And I missed him good. Because all my life I knew that Sam was there. And he was a very funny little guy. I tell you, when he called me up one day and he was crying. And I said, what the hell's wrong with you, Sam? He said, Jean's left me. Jean was his wife. And I said, Jean has left you? I said, that's ridiculous. Jean wouldn't leave you. He said, but she did. And I said, where is she? He's in Cincinnati. What's she doing in Cincinnati? She's there with my son. I said, she's for a visit. No, she left. So I said, well, give me the number and I'll call up. So I called up Jean and I said, hey, Jean, the old man said you left him. She said, he what? I said, he said you left him. She said, well, I did, but only for a visit. And I said, you going back? She said, yeah, but I told him I wouldn't come back till he cleaned up the living room. And I said, what the hell's in the living room? She said, well, you ought to hang up the phone and go over there and find out. She said, because I can't live no more with that man if he don't clean up the living room. Now, he was a sign painter, right? Sign painter. And somewhere along the line, he got the idea that he wanted to paint other than signs. So he got big easels, and he started painting ships. And when I went over there that particular Saturday morning, you couldn't walk into that living room. It was covered with ships. There must have been 200 paintings of ships on the walls, on the floor, under the, everywhere. And I said, Sam, what are you doing over here? He says, well, I like ships. I said, well, there's no reason to have that many of them, you know. And finally, he'd get rid of the paintings. He'd put them somewhere, and she'd come back home again. She said, oh, that damn old fool. See? An amazing thing, that woman was stony deaf. She could hear on the telephone with a big, heavy amplifier she carried. And the day that he died, her hearing came back. Most amazing. Because he used to lead her about, see? And the day he died, both her ears cleared up just like that. She could hear. I don't know why. You see, this guy upstairs is funny. He does a lot of strange things. Well, anyway, that's step 9, making amends. Then we go on to step 10. Continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, we promptly admitted it. Step 4 and step 10 are different. Step 4 is when that you come into AA and you don't know where to start, and you got to get started somewhere. Step 4, big bang. Because as you go on in sobriety, things keep coming back to you. Things that you didn't remember when you were doing step 4. And if you keep going back and doing step 4, you're going to make a lifetime vocation out of it, and it's not what's needed. You'll neglect the rest of the steps. So what you do, you take step 4 one time. And then as these things start coming back to you, you'll be driving along, you remember something that you did a long time ago. You take care of it then with step 10. And when you walk along in the morning and you're ready to snap at somebody, you say, that's wrong, I can't do that. And if you do, then you turn around, you apologize right then. You say, hey, I shouldn't have done that, I was wrong, I'm sorry. Don't let it go. And I would say at this point, too, that all these steps are geared for the alcoholic. Selfish program. Because if you go to bed with something on your mind, something that you've done in step 10, you've been wrong and didn't admit it promptly, you go to bed that night, you don't sleep. And when you don't sleep, you get up the next day, you don't feel good. And when you don't feel good, how do you get to feel good? You take a drink. So these steps are geared to help the alcoholic, nobody else, just the alcoholic. Other people benefit, of course, but we help ourselves mainly. So when we're wrong, we promptly admit it for our own benefit. That's step 10. Then sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Prayer and meditation, a lot of people get upset. They don't know what meditation is. Meditation is simply thinking about you. And I meditate always the same way. I put myself in close contact with the higher power. I do that by counting my blessings, you see. I have so many blessings, it's impossible to believe. But I count my blessings. And when I do, my thoughts always go back to the higher power and my first day in AA and how fortunate I am to be alive. And when I put my mind in that chain of thought, in that train of thought, then everything becomes easy. I asked my friend upstairs, let me go on just a little bit longer. And whatever you want me to do, make it clear to me because I get kind of confused. And what I'm supposed to do, let me know. And tell me what that you want me to do and make it very explicit so I don't make any mistakes. I haven't got much time left for making stupid mistakes and starting over again. So before I do anything, I always meditate just a little bit. And I ask my friend for guidance for that particular day and that particular problem that I have. And praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out. Well, I lay in a hospital not too long ago in the intensive care ward, and I had a very severe heart attack. And one of my arteries to my heart just closed off completely. And it was a terrific amount of damage to the back lower part of my heart. And I lay there between life and death, and I was very alert in my mind. I was aware every minute of what was happening. And I watched that damn beep machine up there, beep, 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 and I waited for that to stop a dozen different times, you know. And all through it all, I kept a good contact with my friend upstairs. And I said, what's going to happen here is either I'm going to get out or I'm not going to get out. Period. That's it. And nobody knows except the man upstairs. And the doctor used to come and he'd tell me, you know, you're going to be all right, Jack. You know, this is going to be fine. And I didn't really care. It didn't bother me at all. It didn't bother me, not even a little bit. The only thing I was concerned about was 3 meetings that I had lined up, 2 in Canada and 1 down south in the States. And I said, I can't get to them meetings, I'm sure. So I had to cancel 3 meetings, and that's the first time in all my years in AA I ever had to cancel a meeting. I couldn't get to them 3. And I said to my friend upstairs, if you want me out of here, get me out of here, but don't let me be a vegetable. Don't let me sit. Give me the strength to go and do what you want me to do. And you know, he did. Because I got out of there, I couldn't walk from here to that chair. I couldn't move. And I no sooner got out of that hospital than it was snowing, and snow was up to there, and the windows were covered with snow. I went home to my home, and I was home for about 2 days. And I couldn't cook, I couldn't do nothing, and I thought if this damn boiler ever goes off, I'll be in trouble. Because it was below 0, it was very cold winter weather. And it was when I was in that condition, my wife was working. My wife is no longer here. She decided she didn't want to live with me any longer. And what happened was that she was taken to the hospital in an emergency operation for gallbladder 2 days after I was home. That left me in a house covered with snow in the middle of winter, unable to cook, unable to get to the bathroom, unable to do anything, all by myself. It was pretty weird, pretty weird. I called a few friends in AA, and they came over on the way to work and on the way home from work, and they called me on the telephone. They kept in touch with me. But what happened was that I had to physically get from there to the stove to get a cup of coffee. And I did it. And I crawled. And I got to the stove and I breathed like I was going to die. And I said, if this is the way it's going to be, this is the way it's going to be. And I finally got to the bed, and I was able to get in the bed and get out of the bed. My wife come back 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, and I was able to get around to the house, you see. And then when the spring came, I got out on the sidewalk and I walked a half a block. And I sat down for 2 hours and I walked back. And then I sat 2 more hours. And then I went back and I walked another half a block. Because you see, if there's a will, there's a way. And I was not going to be tied to a damn wheelchair, see. And pretty soon I was able to walk 2 blocks and 3 blocks and 4 and 8. And then I went over to shopping centers where they were air conditioned, and she dropped me off in the morning at work, and before she went to work, and she picked me up in the evening on the way home, and that day all I did was walk through shopping centers. I knew every counter, I knew every sales girl, every salesman. I knew that shopping center like the back of my hand, because that was my lifeline, you see. Now it gets to the point where I went to the doctor and I asked him, hey doc, I got a trip to make, can I make it? And he said, I'll tell you next week. Come back in and we'll give you some tests. And I went back in and he tested me and he said, yeah, you can make a flight. Try it, see what happens. So I went back and I started going and traveling again to my meetings. And I've been traveling ever since. I don't have any problems because I have turned my life and will over to the care of God as I understand them. And I'm not going to stay in this damn world 1 minute after he wants me, and I'm not going to go 1 minute before he wants me. So I ain't about to worry about it, you see. Because at night when I go to bed, I take all my troubles and I tell my friend upstairs, hey friend, I got to get my sleep, and you're going to be up all night anyway, so here, hold them for me till I get up in the morning. If you pray, don't worry. And if you worry, don't bother praying. I mean, it don't make sense. So that's the way that I live. Now we come to step 12, and I know the seats are getting hard, and I'm going to get the hell out of here real quick. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Very big order, but very simple to do. Having had a spiritual awakening. What is a spiritual awakening? I never had a spiritual experience, but a spiritual awakening I had. Because to me, spirituality, a spiritual person, is a person that is wanted, needed, and loved by his actions in the world, those close to him. Now, if you're spiritual, the people around you love you, and they want you, and they need you. Now, certainly, my being here is an indication to me that I am living a spiritual life. Because people want me, they call me to come, they paid for my ticket to come up here, so I'm wanted, needed, and loved. So I'm doing fine. And that is what the steps of AA do for you. They make you spiritual. Nobody in this world can make amends to people they've hurt and not have them people turn around and say, well, he's a pretty nice fella, I guess I do love him. You see? So it's to our benefit to put these steps into our life, because then we become spiritual. And after we have a spiritual awakening is when we come to realize that we are not sick, helpless, hopeless, chronic alcoholics, but that we are in AA and that we're sober and the guy upstairs has a job for us to do. And that's all that a spiritual awakening is to me. And I have had that spiritual awakening. And having had that spiritual awakening, it was very important to me to help the newcomer when he came through the door to get the same thing that I got when I got here. Understanding. So I always keep an eye on the door for the newcomer, because he is the most important person in the room. Without him, I'm dead. Because if I don't help people and keep my spirituality alive, then I too will die. Guy upstairs will say to me, oh, you tired, Jack? Come on up here. I don't want to go yet. I like it here. I'm having a lot of fun. I enjoy my life. And I don't want to go any time before. I'm going to do anything to precipitate anything that I don't want, you see? and try to carry this message to other alcoholics and practice these principles in all our affairs. Practicing these principles in all our affairs is very simple. I used to think that do unto others before they do unto you. That was the way I lived. And then I had to come into AA, and I changed that around a little bit. And do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You see, I was all screwed up in my head. So now, if I can't help you, I won't hurt you. Guaranteed, I'll never hurt you. I will turn around and I'll walk away before I'll hurt you. I won't even argue with you. Because if I argue with you, you might come out second best, and if you come out second best, you might be at that point in time that you can't handle it. And you might go and seek relief in a bottle. So I won't argue with you. And if you have an opinion, that's your opinion. God bless you. God bless you. I hope that it's the right opinion, but I don't want to have any cause for any animosity to anybody. Because when I came to AA, I was a pretty sick fella. And nobody ever corrected me and jumped down my throat, and I said some pretty stupid things too. I was a pretty dumb fellow when I got here. And what happened was that people tolerated me. They tolerated my ignorance and hoped that I would grow and change. And thank God I did grow and I did change, and I look back and I see how tolerant people were of me. Because my attitude was, if you didn't like AA, well then I'll take you out in the back and I'll knock the brains out of you, see? That was the way I was. Don't talk anything that's wrong because I'll belt you, see? My hands went quicker than my head. And people used to say, Jack, we don't do it that way no more, see? And I say, well, why not? It's quick and easy. You know, we don't have to put up with this nonsense from this bum. I'll take him outside and dump him. And Jack, please, forget about it. We'll handle it. And I couldn't understand their attitude, you know, but now I do, because they didn't want to do what I don't want to do now. So my attitude is, if I can't help you, I won't hurt you. Now I'll tell you one more thing, and then I'm going to shut up. I woke up this morning, as I wake up every morning, and I looked at the floor, and I'm in a very lovely place. I'm living there with Brian, and he's got a whole room. I don't know where the hell he's sleeping, but I'm sleeping in a very nice bed with an air conditioner. I hope he's doing it good. And it's beautiful. And I woke up this morning, and I counted my blessings, and I said, gee, I had a good sleep, and I feel good, and I woke up at 6 o'clock, and I took my pills. See, I take pills. If you ever see me taking a pill, they're not pills for, you know, stupid pills. Or what they are for my heart, because my heart don't go too good. And I take a pill, and it regulates my heartbeat. And I got to take them pretty precisely. So I took one at 6 o'clock, and I laid back a little bit, and I said, isn't it nice? That's a nice fella, Brian and Mike and all of them. And then I said my little prayer, see? The minute I put my feet on the floor, I got to get in touch with the guy upstairs. Because now I've slept, I feel pretty good. I got a big day in front of me. I got a whole 24 hours just for me. And I should be dead, and I'm not. And don't think I'm not grateful. So when I say I woke up this morning, that's real good for me. I'm very happy I woke up. And I told my friend upstairs, I'm sure glad you give me another day, because I got a lot to do today. And I said my little prayer. And I don't think there's very many mornings that I miss my little prayer, because I can always find a little time to say it. And it says, I meet my God in the morning when my day is at its best, and his presence comes like a sunrise, like a glory in my breast. And all day long that presence lingers, and all day long he stays with me, and we sail in perfect calmness o'er a very troubled sea. So I think I know the secret, learned from many a troubled way. You must seek him in the morning if you want him throughout the day. And when I get that little prayer in my heart out, you know, it's a beautiful day. And I don't care if it's hot or raining, or like Brian says, there's going to be a tornado or something tonight. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. But I don't care. It's a beautiful day. And you're beautiful people, and I love you for being here, and I want to thank you all for listening to me. Now, before we close, I would like to say this. If there's anybody that has a question on anything that I've said, please ask it. And no question is stupid. If I've said something to confuse you, let me know about it, see? And I'll try and straighten it out. Now, is there anybody that has a question? Nobody at all. Okay. It's 10 minutes to 1. My God, did I talk all that long? I'm sure that it was somebody else. Must have been him. It wasn't me.
Jack, I was wondering, where does one draw the line between...
Say it again.
Where does one draw the line between neglect and, for example, in a situation where a person, the kid's playing up and, you know, if you don't intervene, if you leave it up in the hands of God, they're going to mess up. You know, where's the middle line?
That's a good question. You don't leave your kids in the hands of God, because God is not their father. You are, see? And there are certain things that you have to do as a father. This is one of the moral obligations in step 4 that you've mucked up on, see? As a father, you have moral obligations to your children and to your wife. As a husband, you have a moral obligations as a husband. You have moral obligations to your neighbor. So these are the moral obligations that they talk about in step 4. It's not sex in there, fearless moral inventory. So now you have to find out, what does a father do? Because obviously you don't know. I don't know either. I didn't know, I should say. And I had to go to somebody that knew what the hell they were talking about. And I always say that if you want to take a good 4th step, what that you do? You find somebody up the street that when you were drinking, you hated his guts. And you know why? Because he was always right. His kids always had shoes. His wife was always happy. He polished his car. He cut the grass on his lawn. When Christmas came, he took his Christmas tree down, not in July, but in December. A guy that always did the right thing. You hate his guts. And his kids are nice. Well, that's the kind of guy you want to take your 4th step with. Not with, but look at him and say, why am I different from him? That's your 4th step, the difference. Do you see? Now you're sober, go to this guy, or go to somebody that knows and their children are good. Go to him and say, hey, what I do in this situation? And lay it out to him, because we can learn from everybody, particularly normal people. See? Go to him and ask him, and that's what you do. Yeah? Find out what a father's supposed to do and do it. Very simple. Okay? Do we have any other questions? Huh? Does that answer yours?
Yes,
okay, good on you. Anything else?
Yes, you said something about...
Could you throw the question at this microphone for us first when you
you said in honesty something about people finding money. Would this be dishonest?
Boys, I didn't hear what you said.
You said in the question honesty,
Yeah.
about someone finding money.
Yeah.
Could you make that a little precise? Could you make it
Well, sure. I was in Mandurah, and I walked into the men's room, and there was a wallet there, and it had $250 in it, Australian money, right, laying on a sink. And I picked it up and I opened it, and I knew damn well that if I put that in my pocket, there was nobody in that meeting who was going to ever suspect me of taking it. Right? Nobody. Well, that's Jack Brennan. He wouldn't do that. They wouldn't even ask me, did I see it? And this went through my mind, because at the time, Uncle Sam is not too heavy with his disability money, you know. And by the time I get it over here, and by the time the Australians get a lump out of it for exchange rate, I wind up with nil. I was zilch, see? So, $250 I could have used. I could have used it.
But if you find a bill in the middle of the road and you're standing there by yourself, what
Oh,
happens?
that's different. I would make every effort to find out whose it belonged to. I would make the effort. And if I couldn't find out who it belonged to, well, naturally I'd keep it. My mother didn't raise no stupid children, you know. But there are a lot of times that we can do things that are not completely dishonest, but they're not honest either. You know that, and that's what we got to get rid of. That fair line in the middle there. See, and if there's a note in there or guy's name and address, you got to give it back to him. Don't keep it. That's what I'm referring to. See, not taking the easy way out all the time. What else do we have? Anything? All right. Well, if that's it, you wanna knock it off now. I'm very happy to have been here. They want me to speak again tonight and tell my story. Is that right? That what you want? Okay, I'll do that tonight. And before I do that, I wanna thank whoever it was responsible for paying for my ticket. I come up here. He got it for me. I don't know where the hell he got it. I hope you didn't steal it, Mike. You know. But wherever it is, because you see, gratitude will strangle you just the same as hate will. See? And I'm full of gratitude. And I realize something, that if I don't get out to meetings and talk to people and help people as best I can, then my gratitude is going to start choking me, you see, and pretty soon I might die. So thank you all for having me, and God bless you all.